Your best tool as a leader at any level is what I call the good question. What's a good question? Well, first and foremost, it's a question you don't know the answer to. Second, it's the kind of question that by its very wording helps us focus on something that matters. That is, it's not, hey, what's on your mind? Helps us focus. It invites careful thought, and it gives people room to respond. Let me give you some examples. They essentially come in two categories. And category one is the kind that help us go broad. What are we missing? What do others think? What other options should we consider? And my favorite, who has a different perspective? Now notice that that is a close cousin of, does anyone have a different perspective? This one's better, right? The frame under, does anyone have a different perspective is any one of you brave enough to slow us down? Good, no. What's the frame under this one? There's a treasure out there somewhere. I just don't know which one of you has it, and I'd love to hear it. The other kind of good question are the kind that help us go deeper. Okay, I see you think that, but I don't yet see why. What data do you have? What's the logic? What's the concern? Can you give me an example? What might happen if? Right? These are tools, absolutely free, absolutely valuable, that help us go deeper, that help us do better thinking about our most important decisions, whether they be related to curricula or patients. So we've framed the work. We've been overt. We don't accept silence as an answer. It's still not enough. The third thing you must do is have a productive response. Let's just say someone takes you seriously on the first two. They raise their hand, they bring you bad news. Remember Martin Winterkorn? And you bite their head off. Not gonna work. Okay, here we go. What's a productive response? Well, it has two features. Let me give you a story and then tell you the two features. So this is Alan Mulally. He came in and took over Ford at a time when it was bleeding red ink and turned it around. It's quite a remarkable story written about in a marvelous book called The American Icon, meaning Ford. And Mulally, in his first couple of meetings with his senior team, no longer all white men, thankfully, asked them to color code their reports, right? Red for trouble ahead, yellow for caution, and green for good news. Okay, so the first couple of senior staff meetings, everything was, you got it, you were there, right? No, green. So finally, Mulally says, listen team, we are on track to lose $17 billion, that's with a B, dollars this year. Is there anything not going well? Now notice what he's just done. He has framed the work, right? $17 billion. I mean, there better be things going wrong if you're losing that much money. And then he said, invite engagement, right? Is anything not going well? Be slightly better if he said, what isn't going well, right? But that's a tweak. Deathly silence. And then Mark Fields, head of all of the all of the Americas, North and South, raises his hand and proceeds to describe a very serious problem with the new Ford Edge. More silence ensues. Everybody else around the table reported having the following thought. Okay, he's out of here. They thought Mark was going to be fired for speaking truth to power. That's not what happened, or I wouldn't be telling you this story. What happened was that Mulally put his two hands together and started to applaud. Turns out there were some people who thought that was a signal, from stage left over here, the guy's gonna come and then take Mark out, and that's the end of Mark. No, of course not. He applauded and then he said, Mark, thank you so much for that clear line of sight. Now what can we do to help? Now notice, that's not happy talk, right? He's not saying, isn't that wonderful, Mark? It's not, right? It's bad news. But the clear line of sight is mission critical. Problem solving is a team sport. Now, it turns out that within 12 seconds, literally, 3 executives had offered prior experience with a similar problem, offer of engineers to go up to that plant and help sort it out, and ideas about what could be going wrong. 12 seconds. Right? So this, if any of you are worried about, well, doing it this way will take longer, it doesn't. It takes longer to spend 2 or 3 weeks not talking about problems and having them fester. So in a wonderful interview with Diane Brady in Business Week, Alan says you have to make honest feedback a positive experience. And the reason this is an important point is because honest feedback isn't by its nature a positive experience. In fact, it's quite the opposite. So you've got to override it. As a leader, you've got to show that the red, the bad news, that's the gem. That's the treasure, right? That's what we really need and want. I had to demonstrate with my behavior that I welcomed it. I think a positive response, a productive response has 2 features. 1, it's appreciative. It's appreciative of the effort it took to come forward. And 2, it's forward-looking. There may be a need to do the postmortem later, not now. Let's go forward. So another example, and you might think this is a bridge too far, the chief scientific officer at Eli Lilly a number of years ago instituted failure parties. Yes, indeed, parties to celebrate drug trials that didn't produce the results that we dearly wanted. Now, you might think that's a bridge too far. I want to suggest this is exactly the right thing to do, and here's why. Number 1, it contributes to the kind of psychological safety culture you need to innovate.